Revenge trading has nothing to do with anger. I need you to hear that, because everything you have been told about revenge trading is wrong. It is not rage. It is not frustration. It is not a temper problem. Revenge trading is grief. It is the desperate, unconscious refusal to accept that a loss has already happened. And until you understand that distinction, until you see revenge trading for what it actually is, you will keep doing it no matter how many times you promise yourself you will stop. Mark Douglas identified this pattern decades ago, long before most of the trading psychology industry even existed. He recognized that the traders who destroyed themselves after a loss were not the angry ones. They were the ones who could not tolerate what the loss meant about them. The loss was not just money leaving their account. The loss was an attack on their identity. It said, "You were wrong." And for a trader whose self-worth is tangled up in being right, that message is unbearable. So they do the only thing that feels like it will fix it, they get back in immediately, often bigger, often on a worse setup, trying to erase the loss before the market closes, trying to make it as if the loss never happened. That is not anger. That is an ego fighting for survival. And here is what makes this so lethal. Your results in the market are not determined by your analysis. They are determined by your beliefs and your emotional state in the moment you act. Every decision you make while revenge trading is contaminated not by stupidity, but by a nervous system that has been hijacked. And most traders never see this contamination because it does not feel like emotion. It feels like clarity. It feels like conviction. It feels like, I know this one is going to work. That false confidence is the most expensive feeling in trading. If you want to see just how consistently your emotions distort your execution, you need a way to track your state across sessions, not your profit and loss, but the feelings underneath it. The Speculator's Journal was designed for exactly that kind of self-observation. There is a link in the description. But right now, let me show you why this pattern has such a grip on you and exactly how to break it. Let me describe what revenge trading actually looks like from the inside, because I guarantee you have lived every second of this and never seen it clearly. You take a trade. It is a good trade. Your setup, your level, your rules. It loses. The stop triggers. And in that instant, before you have even processed the loss consciously, something happens in your body. Your jaw tightens. Your breathing gets shallow. There is a heat in your chest, or a hollow feeling in your stomach, or a sudden sharpness in your focus that feels like alertness, but is actually threat activation. Your nervous system has just classified that loss as danger. Not financial danger, existential danger. Danger to the story you tell yourself about who you are. And here is the sequence that follows. It is the same every single time, for every trader who does this, in every market, in every time zone. First, the scan. You immediately start looking for the next trade, not because a setup appeared, because the loss created an emotional debt that you need to repay. You are not scanning the market. You are scanning for permission to get back in. Second, the rationalization. You find something. It is not your best setup. Maybe it is not a setup at all, but your brain presents it to you with absolute conviction. This one is clear. This one is obvious. Look at that level. And in the moment, you believe it, because your brain is not trying to find the truth. It is trying to find a trade, any trade, a vehicle to undo what just happened. Third, the escalation. You increase your size, maybe you double it. Maybe you just add a little. The logic, if you can call it that, is simple. You need to make back the loss quickly, so you need more size. Every fiber of your rational mind knows this is wrong. But you are not operating from your rational mind. You are operating from a threat response that is older than language, older than money, older than markets. It is the same circuitry that made your ancestors chase a predator that stole their food. The loss took something from you, and you must take it back. Fourth, the second loss. The revenge trade loses. And now you are not just down from one loss, you are down from two, the second one larger than the first. And the emotional debt has doubled. So the cycle repeats and repeats. And by the time the fog clears, sometimes minutes later, sometimes an hour, sometimes not until the session is over, you have taken 6 or 8 or 12 unplanned trades. Your account has a hole in it that will take days or weeks to recover from. And you are sitting in the wreckage, feeling the one thing revenge trading was designed to prevent. Shame. The exact feeling you were trying to outrun. How many times have you lived that sequence? How many times have you closed your laptop and stared at the wall, knowing that a single loss turned into a catastrophe because you could not walk away? How many times have you sworn it would never happen again, knowing even as you said it that the next time a loss stung badly enough, you would do exactly the same thing? Mark Douglas worked with thousands of traders who described this exact cycle to him, often with the same bewildered tone as if it had happened to someone else, as if they had been temporarily possessed by a version of themselves they did not recognize. And what he found is that they were right, in a way. They were possessed not by a demon, but by a belief so deep they did not know it was there. The belief that a loss means they were wrong, and being wrong means they are not good enough. And not being good enough is something they cannot sit with. So they fight it. They fight the market, they fight the loss, they fight the evidence. And the market always wins that fight, because the market does not care about your ego. So if this is the mechanism, if revenge trading is driven not by anger but by an identity that cannot absorb a loss, then the solution is not to control your anger. The solution is to change what a loss means. Here is the lie at the center of revenge trading. You believe that a losing trade means you were wrong, that you misread the market, that your analysis failed, that you made a mistake. But that belief only makes sense in a world where the outcome of any single trade is determined by the quality of your decision, and it is not. That is the fundamental misunderstanding. In a probabilistic environment, and the market is nothing if not a probabilistic environment, the outcome of any individual trade is essentially random. You can take the perfect setup at the perfect level with the perfect entry, and it will lose 30 or 40% of the time. Not because you were wrong, because that is what a 60% edge looks like on any given trade. It looks like a coin flip that is slightly tilted in your favor, and you do not get angry at a coin for landing tails. Mark Douglas considered this the most important reframe. A trader can internalize the understanding that no individual trade carries any meaning whatsoever about your skill, your intelligence, or your worth. None. Zero. The only thing that carries meaning is the aggregate. The pattern across 100 trades, 200 trades, 1,000 trades. Any single trade within that sample is noise. It is one data point in a distribution, and you do not grieve a data point. Think of a basketball player who shoots 45% from three-point range. That is elite. That is all-star caliber. And it means that more than half the shots this elite player takes are misses. Does the player collapse emotionally after every miss? Does the player change their shooting form after 2 misses in a row? Does the player stop shooting? No, because the player understands at a level that most traders have never reached that the miss is part of the make percentage. You do not get one without the other. Your losses are a part of your win rate. They are not mistakes, they are costs. They are the price of admission to a probabilistic game. And the moment you internalize that, truly internalize it, not just understand it intellectually, revenge trading loses its fuel. Because there is nothing to avenge. Nothing was taken from you. A probability played out. That is all. But understanding this is not enough. You have probably understood this for months, maybe years, and you still revenge trade. Because the understanding is in your prefrontal cortex, and the impulse is in your amygdala. And in a fight between logic and survival instincts, survival wins every time. So you need more than understanding. You need protocols. Specific, concrete, non-negotiable behaviors that interrupt the revenge cycle before it takes hold. Let me give you 4 of them. And I need you to treat these not as suggestions, but as rules that you follow without exception. The first protocol is what I call the 60-second freeze. This is non-negotiable. The moment a trade closes at a loss, the instant your stop is hit, the instant you close the position, the instant you see red, you take your hands off the keyboard. Physically, you put your hands in your lap or flat on the desk, and you do not touch the keyboard or the mouse for 60 seconds. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking 60 seconds is nothing. It will not make a difference. But you are wrong, and here is why. The revenge impulse peaks in the first 15 to 30 seconds after a loss. That is when the threat response is loudest. That is when your brain is screaming at you to get back in, to fix it, to act. If you can survive those 30 seconds without acting, the intensity drops dramatically. Not to 0, but enough that the rational mind has a chance to be heard. Here is what you do during those 60 seconds. You breathe. 3 deep breaths, In through the nose for 4 counts, out through the mouth for 6 counts. This is not meditation advice. This is neuroscience. The extended exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the biological brake pedal for your threat response. You are not calming yourself down because it feels nice. You are manually downregulating the system that is trying to override your judgment. After 60 seconds, you ask yourself one question. Am I about to trade because I see a setup or because I feel a loss? If the answer is honest, and it must be honest, you will know. The revenge impulse has a specific feeling. It is urgent. It is hot. It is immediate. A genuine setup evaluation feels different, calmer, more analytical, more patient. You know the difference. You have always known the difference. The 60-second freeze gives you the space to feel the difference before you act. The second protocol is the cooling period. This is non-negotiable. After any loss, not just a revenge-inducing loss, any loss, you impose a mandatory waiting period before you are allowed to take another trade. The minimum is 10 minutes. For traders with a severe revenge pattern, I recommend 30 minutes or the rest of the session, whichever is shorter. Now, I know what you are thinking. You are thinking that you will miss the next move, that the market will set up perfectly during your cooling period, and you will have to watch it happen without a position. And I can tell you with absolute certainty that the trade you miss during a cooling period is infinitely less costly than the revenge trade you would have taken without one. This is not even close. The math is not debatable. One missed good trade is a fraction of the damage that one revenge trade spiral inflicts on your account. During the cooling period, you leave your desk. Not minimize the chart, not check your phone. Leave, stand up, walk to another room, drink a glass of water, go outside. Put physical distance between yourself and the screen, because the screen is the trigger. As long as you can see price moving, your brain is processing it as a trading environment, and the impulse stays active. Remove the stimulus, and the impulse weakens. When the cooling period ends, you return to your desk and apply the question from the 60-second freeze again. Am I about to trade because I see a setup or because I feel a loss? If you still feel the loss, if there is any heat, any urgency, any need to make something happen, the cooling period extends. You are not ready. You wait until the answer changes. The third protocol is the narrative rewrite. This is not a protocol you use in the moment. It is a practice you do every evening, and it targets the root belief that makes revenge trading possible. The belief that a loss means you were wrong. Here's the practice. At the end of every session, you open your journal and you find every losing trade from the day. For each one, you write 2 versions of what happened. Version 1 is the story your ego tells. Something like, I took a short at resistance and it blew through. I was wrong. I misread the market. I should have seen that buying pressure. Version 2 is the probabilistic story. Something like, I took a short at resistance according to my plan. The trade had a 60% historical win rate at this setup. This was one of the 40%. Execution was correct. Outcome was random. You write both versions. And then you cross out version 1, physically. With a pen, you draw a line through it, and you read version 2 out loud. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking this is childish, this is silly, writing out stories and crossing things out that is not real trading work. But here's what I need you to understand. The story you tell yourself about a loss is the difference between a trader who moves on and a trader who revenge trades. The narrative is not decoration. The narrative is the mechanism. Your brain does not respond to raw data. It responds to the story wrapped around the data. Change the story and you change the emotional response. Change the emotional response and you change the behavior. Do this every single evening for 30 days and watch what happens. The version 1 narrative, the ego story, the I was wrong story starts to feel foreign. It starts to feel dramatic, exaggerated, almost embarrassing. And the version 2 narrative starts to feel like the truth. Because it is the truth. It was always the truth. You just could not hear it over the noise of your ego. The fourth protocol is the session circuit breaker. This is non-negotiable. Before every trading session, you define 2 hard stops, a maximum number of consecutive losses, and a maximum daily drawdown in dollars or percentage. When either one is hit, you are done for the day. No exceptions. No one more. Done. Let me be specific about the numbers. If you struggle with revenge trading, your consecutive loss limit should be 2, not 3. 2. After 2 consecutive losses, your nervous system is primed for a revenge response, and your third trade, no matter how good it looks, is statistically more likely to be emotionally driven than analytically driven. Your daily drawdown limit should be whatever number would cause you emotional distress if you lost it. For most small account traders, this might be 1 or 2% of the account. The exact number matters less than the principal. It must be small enough that hitting it does not trigger a shame spiral, because the shame spiral is what feeds the revenge cycle. Here is how you enforce it. You set a price alert or an account balance alert in your platform. When the alert fires, you close every open position immediately. You do not wait to see if it recovers. You do not move your stop one more time. You close. You log your adherence in your journal, and you leave. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, what if my best trade of the day happens after I hit my limit? And the answer is, it might. Occasionally, you will miss a winning trade because you walked away. And that is fine, because you are not optimizing for any single day. You are optimizing for survival across thousands of days. And the trader who walks away at 2 consecutive losses survives. The trader who stays for the third trade and the fourth and the fifth, that trader is the 95%. That trader is the statistic in the title of this video. Do not be that trader. Let me connect all of this back to where we started. Revenge trading destroys 95% of traders, not because they are weak, not because they are emotional, and not because they lack discipline. It destroys them because they carry a belief hidden, unexamined, running silently in the background, that their worth as a trader is determined by their last trade. And when the last trade is a loss, they cannot tolerate what that belief tells them about themselves. So they fight it. They take the revenge trade not to make money, but to restore the story, to prove they are still right, to undo the loss before it becomes part of their identity. And the cure is not willpower. The cure is not anger management. The cure is demolishing that belief and replacing it with one that is true. No individual trade determines anything about you. You are not your last trade. You are your process. You are your adherence. You are the sum of 1,000 executions, not the result of one. So here is what you commit to, starting tomorrow. The 60-second freeze after every loss, hands off the keyboard, 3 breaths. Then ask the question. The cooling period, minimum 10 minutes away from the screen after any loss. The narrative, rewrite 2 versions of every loss. Cross out the ego version. Read the probabilistic version aloud. The session circuit breaker, 2 consecutive losses or your drawdown limit, and you are done. Do these 4 things every trading day. Not when you feel like it, not when the loss is big enough to justify it. Every day, every loss. Because the power of these protocols is not in any single execution. It is in the repetition. It is in the daily act of interrupting the pattern until the pattern weakens and eventually dissolves. Mark Douglas built his life's work on a simple observation that the traders who achieve lasting consistency are the ones who stop defining themselves by outcomes and start defining themselves by process. The revenge trader is the extreme case of outcome-defined identity. Every loss is a wound. Every win is a bandage. And the emotional roller coaster never stops. The consistent trader does not ride that coaster, because the consistent trader does not have a self that needs to be proved or protected in the market. The consistent trader has already decided who they are before the session begins, and no trade, winning or losing, changes that decision. That is what these 4 protocols build toward. Not just the elimination of revenge trading, but the construction of a new identity. An identity that is impervious to the outcome of any single trade. An identity rooted in execution, in process, in the quiet, repetitive act of following a plan without deviation. An identity that does not need the market to confirm its worth. If you want to see this transformation unfold, if you want a way to track whether the revenge pattern is actually weakening over weeks and months, to see your emotional scores change, to watch your adherence improve in black and white, the Speculator's Journal gives you that visibility. It takes what Mark Douglas could only describe in words and turns it into something you can measure across time. There is a link in the description. But the starting point is simpler than any tool. The starting point is the next loss you take and what you do in the 60 seconds after it hits. Hands off the keyboard, 3 breaths, 1 question. That is where the 95% statistic stops applying to you.